What is the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious mind?
The honest answer is that it's not something that's well understood. We love to slice everything up and keep them separate and have their different categories so we can sort of easily analyse them. But that's not really how it works. You can't access your subconscious mind without using your conscious mind, and your subconscious is automatically influencing your conscious experience. So they kind of work together, but separately as well. So the relationship is like conjoined twins. They can't be separated, and yet they seem to have separate individual identities and functions and conscious experiences. We are a multitude of beings within one. We are. That's pretty well understood and not controversial. We have separate consciousnesses operating within the one consciousness. And that's why we have these competing desires. So there's not just one subconscious mind as well. There's multiple ones, multiple different personalities wanting different things. It's like when people say, that you obviously just don't want enough. That's not seeing the whole picture. That's not understanding the multitude of beings frame. The fact is that you have competing desires. You do want it, and there's also another part of you that wants. So there's a part of you that wants to eat the cake, and there's a part of you that doesn't want to eat the cake, right? So it's not that you do want to lose weight or you don't want to lose weight. It's that you do want to lose weight, and you also want to indulge in all the yummy foods that you possibly could all the time. And I know it's definitely true for me. So it's not. There are multiple desires happening at any time, and it's just the one that's ascendant at the time is the one that tends to win. And like I said, at the time. So the truth is, you talk to someone who's just finished a binge and they're feeling sick and they've eaten 3 Big Macs and 2 large chips and they're feeling terrible, feeling overly satisfied. At the time they did want it, but then afterwards you talk to them and they're like, well, that need has been satisfied and the desire for it is now low, because it's been gratified. But then they'll say, yeah, I really want to make this change. I really got to stop doing this. It's not that that's not genuine. It's just that at the time, the desire to stop it is higher, and the desire to get healthy has the opportunity to come up higher. And that's difficult to manage. And if you're not, to touch on an earlier topic, if you're not mindful, if you're not paying attention to all these competing desires and having facilitating a conversation between them and having this relationship. So this isn't just one relationship. This isn't just a relationship between you and yourself. This is a relationship between you and all the different parts of yourself. So there's a whole community within you that has to be managed. Manage, that sounds like some sort of manager. It has to be led. Has to be inspired and led and aligned. I was hesitant to say the word aligned because I also think that kind of gives a false impression as well, because it's not about having them all on the same page. They won't all be on the same page. It's about negotiating different needs at different times and having this well-functioning community within you. So, and that's not always they have shared goals, but then there are some where different people are going to have different goals that are unique to them. So it's not that simple. Otherwise, we'd all have figured it out. But it is this complicated, and unfortunately, but as a concept, it at least is simple. Is that there's a community within you that needs to be related to and work together, to achieve best outcomes, for the overall well-being of everyone. Sometimes certain people in the community are going to be favoured and doing better than others, and sometimes the dynamics will shift. But that's life.
Is it your consciousness that brings more attention to certain people within yourself, or personalities within yourself? Is it a conscious act or a subconscious act?
Again, you can't. It's impossible to separate the conscious and the subconscious. When you influence one, you influence the other, and yet it's useful to have this distinction, because there are different sort of levels of consciousness. There's the sort of base level of just eat and fight, or flight, and survival and replication, all these sorts of things are sort of would be referred to as like the lizard brain, the reptilian brain. And then there's kind of the emotional brain, to that we seek out love and connection and community. And then there's the higher brain, which is sort of logic and thinking and concepts and wanting to sort of make sense of the world. There's a need within us to a drive to want to make sense logically of the world, and so we want to use all our different powers of consciousness. And then this one that we're talking about, which is why it's so much more elusive, is almost like a spiritual dimension, like of where we're sort of observing the whole thing taking place, observing the different levels of consciousness, as been described in areas like Buddhism, and is to be looking at the monkey mind, watching the monkey mind, is observing the whole thing take place. Then that is a higher consciousness activity, to watch it, and then from there, if you want it to not be so chaotic, then you'll do whatever is reasonable to shift it into a new direction. Again, I've said this before, you don't get direct access to these things, but we get indirect access to it through using that high level of consciousness observation, and then relating to those pieces to inspire them in a new direction.
Are habits or addictions a subconscious thing that you consciously need to move yourself away from?
Say again?
Are habits and addictions a subconscious thing, or subconscious drive, that you consciously need to move away from? I know that they're a bit of both, so habits and addictions are a bit conscious and subconscious, like you've been saying.
Yeah, look, it's a very deep question, because like addictions a lot of the time are just something that we do to distract ourselves from deeper pains, the pain of unresolved traumas, the pain of the life you wish you were living, the pain of the person that you wish that you could be, or I mean, it's what they call the human predicament. The future is an inherently ambiguous place where we don't know what's going to happen, right? So that alone is enough to make someone go mad. You do not know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. That's scary, and we can lie to ourselves and tell ourselves that we do know what's going to happen, and there's a good chance that what we think will happen, but you don't know that. Meteor could hit the earth and we could all just evaporate right now. It's like, exactly. So I think that, part of the human predicament is literally just the experience of anxiety. So there's no mystery about why people feel anxious. If you don't feel anxious, you're living some sort of delusion about certainty of the future. So addictions are a distraction from things like that and more. Sometimes it's easier to deal with an addiction than it is to get your life together. To do all that's needed to do to have a functional life in today's civilization, it's a lot of work. To stay healthy, to stay on top of things, to be taking care of your family, or to being a good friend and a good partner and all these things. It takes a lot of it, and sometimes it's easier to just be lost in addiction than it is to actually deal with all those things.
And so what I hear you say is that, in relation to my question, it's both the subconscious and conscious thing as well. Addiction. It's not something that's completely out of our control. It's been done from a faraway subconscious place. It's conscious and unconscious. It's the whole way through.
Well, everything is. Yeah, everything is. Like, I mean,
habits, so good things that you're trying to do come from a deep place and a conscious place.
Basically, the fact is, you can't separate conscious from unconscious, right? The traditional approaches to personal change, self-improvement, all that is essentially just to isolate the conscious aspects of things, right? Which is, your feelings and your thoughts and your actions, that happen in the conscious world, and then just try and manipulate them and control them. That's the typical way of doing things. This is the plan. This is what you need to do. Don't worry about how you feel. Just do that. Just think positive. Force your thoughts to be a certain way. And then just hopefully your emotions follow. And then you'll just ignore your feelings and just do the actions that need to be done. And then hopefully things will change. It's a complete ignorance of the influence of that subconscious force. It's totally only focusing on conscious stuff, which is just absolutely guaranteed to fail in the long term. So that's, if I can make sense of it anyway, is to point out how it's a total failure to ignore it.
Yeah. And how would you go about changing them both at the same time? Mindfulness.
Well, that's for another video. Yeah. Actually, there is a model that we don't have time to go into today, but that I'm saying is so awareness, acceptance, allowance.
That sounds great. Acceptance, awareness, allowance.
It's awareness, acceptance, allowance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Awareness, acceptance, allowance. Instead of AA, it's AAA.
Yeah.
So you become aware of all the things, aware of everything we're talking about here, the multitude of beings within you, everything that needs to take place. You become aware of your feelings and the dynamics of the internal space, because it's just confusing. You don't know what to do, and you just think because otherwise you just think you can control yourself, but you can't, right? So you have to become aware of all these things, and then the extra piece of mindfulness, having that extra power of higher attention and consciousness, right? Because and awareness to what you're doing. So aware of all that stuff, but then accepting the realities of things, accepting your limitations, accepting the process that needs to be involved, accepting the pain involved, accepting all that is, right? Accepting the difficulty of it, the human predicament. Just accept it all. Accept it all. Come to terms with everything good and bad about it, right? Then we can just put that to bed, right? And now, once you're in a place of awareness and acceptance, you just allow it to happen. You allow it. The rest just comes through. And that's all we've got time for.